Say what you will, but page-to-screen adaptations should get more smoke for hiring actors that miserably fail at capturing character spirits. Adaptation plot holes are important too, but they can be ignored if the cast plays the characters by the book. Speaking of, House of the Dragon couldn't have chosen a better fit for the adult version of Rhaenyra Targaryen than Emma Darcy. Here are 10 of Rhaenyra's mannerisms from Martin's books that Emma absolutely nailed. First things first, her quest for peace. Contrary to what most fans think, Rhaenyra isn't obnoxiously power-hungry. Her motivations behind ascending the Iron Throne, in fact, have nothing to do with power. People who have read the books know that her major, if not only goal as heir to Westeros, is to make peace with the Greens. She knows that if the fighting doesn't come to an end, they'll be unprepared for the White Walker attack. Emma, in case you guys didn't notice, embodies her quest for peace to a T. She can be seen scrambling to make one deal after another to put an end to the fighting. Moving on to her love for her children. While the show is rife with examples of children's rights abuses, for instance, Viserys' attitude towards Rhaenyra before Aemma's death, you'll have to admit that Rhaenyra herself cares deeply about her children. Yeah, we are aware that she took her sweet time warming up to the idea, but you've got to admit that once she did, she really did give them her all, be it safeguarding Luke's rights and keeping him safe from Alicent, or encouraging Jace in his Valyrian studies. She's always present for them. Darcy perfectly conveys these things, especially the way in which the character doesn't want her kids to pay for her, or rather their own actions. Then, her political mistakes. Just because they've been on the Iron Throne for a little over 3 centuries doesn't mean that every Targaryen is fit to rule over the 7 kingdoms. After all, there's no rule that says a famous last name guarantees qualifications for a good ruler. That being said, Rhaenyra has made quite a few costly long-term political mistakes. Case in point, leaving King's Landing for Dragonstone. The show was able to depict this move and her other failings as more understandable and believable than the books, all thanks to Emma. Fans now see where the princess was coming from and why she assumed it'd have no consequences. Let's also talk about her relationship with Daemon. When it comes to Daemon and Rhaenyra's dynamic, we've a feeling that another actor would have depicted the princess as less confident or more subservient to Daemon. But believe it or not, Darcy's portrayal of Rhaenyra's confidence showcased the relationship as it truly was in the books. To elaborate, she mostly calls the shots and Daemon relies on her. Yes, there are times when he occasionally acts out, but then it's in tune with his character being kind of a wild card. Basically, no harm done. How can we forget her willingness to lie? One of the hardest things for an actor to do is to make a character's despicable traits come off as admirable. When it comes to Rhaenyra's tendency to lie, it'd be an understatement to say that Emma's done a great job of making this trait worthy of compassion. For anyone who hasn't read the books, it's the character's most defining aspects. She's the least honest woman in all of Westeros. So much so, it's nothing short of a miracle that anyone believes a thing that comes out of her mouth. Think about it. The way she lies about her son's parentage and Daemon touching her is the work of a master manipulator, one who's not even ashamed of doing it to those closest to her. What's more, there's her quiet brutality. If there's one thing that this franchise has seen loads of, it's blatant cruelty. Take Alicent as an example. You might remember how blatant she was about her willingness to gouge Luke's eyes out as punishment for gouging Aemon's. But when it comes to Rhaenyra, it's noticeable that she's very adept at keeping her cruel streak perfectly concealed. Demanding that Aemon be sharply questioned or nodding at Daemon to take Daemon's head was all sadistic, yes, but it was subtle. Of course, brutality is a necessary trait for a prospective queen, but the way Emma portrays it shows us how important it is to disguise it, especially if you want to show other characters as more brutal than you, and in turn, unfit to rule. Similarly, her pride. Even before she's nominated as the heir to the Iron Throne, Rhaenyra is depicted as a prideful woman, and given that she's a dragon rider, and as a result one of the most powerful Targs, she's well within her rights to be. It's this pride that leads her to flout the rules without much care, be it flirting with Daemon, sneaking out of the castle, or passing off her bastard sons as trueborns. Emma captures this tendency perfectly. Add to that her love for Viserys. While it's easy to see where the idea that the character hates her father comes from, she harbors a deep and lasting love for Viserys. Yes, despite his obsession with a male heir and failing to prepare her for the throne from a young age, she doesn't resent him. This love is quite easy to perceive in Darcy's soft and gentle care for him. We think that the depiction of this bond was made more apt thanks to Paddy Considine's fidelity to his role as Viserys as well. The way he comes to her son's defense, for example, or how he's willing to go after anyone who talks bad about them. The bottom line is, they were both responsible for making the decision of this bond a success. Up next, her fears. In case it's been some time since you read the book, let's remind you that despite being the heir apparent, Rhaenyra spends a large part of her life in terror. We mean, don't all the rulers fear for their lives, the lives of their families, and their subjects? Well, she's no different. Darcy's portrayal doesn't shy away from her fears. As a matter of fact, she does an excellent job of channeling them. For instance, scenes concerning her son's Rhaenyra's marriages, Emma's acting beautifully conveys how afraid the character is. Her embodiment of these fears is so convincing that fans can now easily see that should a single one of them come true, 2, she'd go absolutely ballistic and make the poorest of decisions. And finally, her unwillingness to kill her family. Speaking of poor decisions, no matter what the other characters and certain fans think of her, Rhaenyra has never nurtured an urge to kill any of her siblings. In the books, she made this very clear from the get-go, because in her opinion, a Kingslayer is accursed in the eyes of both men and gods. Now, before you point out her willingness to order Aemon's torture, she doesn't wish him dead. As for the show, Emma's acting doesn't give the slightest hint that she's harboring such ideas like Alicent thinks she is. Darcy nails the character's depiction as a troubled woman whose goal is to build bonds, not destroy them. Now that we've illustrated how Emma Darcy was an excellent call on the casting director's part, let's look at a few of Daemon's mannerisms and whether Matt Smith does justice to them or not. First up, his ambition. When one briefly stops thirsting over him to focus on his accuracy as per the books, it's difficult not to commend Matt Smith. He's perfectly able to convey Daemon's desperation for the crown and just how hard he's trying to stop his ambitions from spiraling into pure villainy. Just like Rhaenyra's case, Smith's skill as an actor makes the prince's villainy really attractive. Okay, let the drooling commence. Then there's his loyalty to his brother. While he might not always respect his sib, both in the books and on screen, Daemon remains loyal to his brother Viserys. Look at this scene where they're together and you'll notice how Matt's acting makes this love and loyalty really clear. On top of that, his independence. One thing that's been pretty obvious about the character since the beginning is his independence. This, of course, has to do with his being a part of the royal family. Now, in our opinion, Smith is able to convey this hatred for any kind of restriction so well because of his role as Prince Philip in The Crown. In fact, it must have helped with the arrogance that we were just referring to as well. Last but not least, his ability to command loyalty. One thing that's common between Matt and Daemon is their innate charisma. They're both the type of people who can draw attention themselves simply by walking into a room. This explains why Matt has no trouble nailing roles where Daemon needs to command people's loyalty to his cause, even the ones that are illegal or outright treasonous. For more perspective on this, think back to the sequence where he was able to keep Viserys from bringing the full might of the Iron Throne down on his head. He kinda deserved it, but his charisma came to his rescue. And that's a wrap for this video. Have you read the books? If yes, which other characters do you think were portrayed authentically? Who do you think was the least authentic? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos just like this. We'll see you in the next one.